Okie dokie, that should be us. We're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining BrisJS and bearing with us. Always a few minutes late. Some last minute technical hiccups, just trying to get everything aligned. But welcome. Thank you for joining us in June. I know it was probably a bit of a surprise last month that we didn't have our event, but we had to have some awesome folks, which you'll see tonight, step up and submit their talks. So thank you very much to everyone who's been getting in touch with me for submitting talks this month and next month. That way we can keep BrisJS alive. So appreciate that. And if you're a watcher out there, you're going to hear me say this a few times. We need your talks. So thank you very much for coming up with ideas and getting in touch and submitting them through our YouTube. Our GitHub. I'll cover that in a minute. Okay, let's get straight into it. I've kind of given everything a couple more minutes to buffer up. I can see the viewer count is rising, so that's great. That's awesome. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm going to throw to my slides now, and that way you can stare at something while everyone comes online. Okay. Good. And you should still see me in the corner. Oh, good. There's some details if you're interested in getting in touch. And you may notice there's some additional color. Oh, good. Well, everyone will be able to get back to us with the replay feature of YouTube live streams. So without further delay, let's crack into it. You know the format if you've been a long-time viewer of BrisJS in its streaming format. We use Slido.com to be able to take your Q&A. It's super useful and a lot of fun actually for us here in the video broadcasting suite, so to speak. Yeah, we'll be able to take all your questions and read them out to the presenters as soon as their talk is done. That way they're not juggling multiple chat channels and threads and things like that. We'll have a bit of a interviewer kind of style format between each of the talks then. Yeah, if you want to keep throwing in additional questions or as you go, it's all good. We've got a bit of maybe about a 10-second delay on the YouTube stream. So if we don't immediately see your message and react, that's the explanation for that there. No, we will definitely get to everyone's questions. So please do put them in. I'll also watch the chat in YouTube and try and take some of the questions out of there into the Slido if you can't access it for any reason. If you're on the go, for example, with your phone, commuting home or anything like that, please do still feel free to use any way you can to get a question to us. So I'll try and help facilitate that, but Slido is the place to be. Oh, good. Yeah, I can see some folks are joining us from across the pond. And yeah, some folks from Sydney now in Brisbane, yeah, kia ora to you too, from Hawke's Bay. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's kind of a treat actually to have BrisJS exposed to everyone. I guess the internet provides this, so yeah, that's really kind of cool. All right, let's kick off in some of our preamble. We'd like to start off with an acknowledgement of country. So let me just move some windows, sorry. So yeah, we'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the site that we broadcast on from today, the Yugara and Bundjalung people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. And I can't get my mouse cursor. This one, I know it's different times of the year or around different places around the world, but to all our LGBTQIA+ members of BrisJS, happy Pride. Lots of respect and love to you all. Thank you for being part of our community as well. Meetup.com, that's where you found us. That's where you might have at least seen the published info about our speakers tonight. Thank you for registering on there. That just kind of helps to give me a bit of an idea and also helps to keep you up to date with any changes if we have to, send out an updated notice or new speaker info or anything that happens in between. It's at least a central place to be able to give you the latest information as we go forward. It used to be really important to know exactly how many chairs we'd put out in the venue and how much pizza to order. Now it's kind of more stats, as well as keeping up to date with emails and notifications about what's going on. Code of conduct. So BrisJS is a harassment-free experience for everyone, and that's including online. So if you're in the chat, you're in our Slido, anything like that, please be aware that we'd like to make sure everyone's abiding by our anti-harassment policy, and you can check that out at brisjs.org/conduct. Cool. Here's that badgering. You can request a talk, absolutely. Pop that on there through our GitHub issues. Say, hey, I'd really like to see somebody do a talk about XYZ. That could encourage somebody to pick up that topic. They go, oh, actually, I know about that. Maybe I can do a talk, because sometimes people are just lost for ideas. Not sure what anyone would like to hear them talk about. So it's a good stimulus, but also the one in red is please submit a talk. We need you. You can imagine that we need you, kind of poster. Yeah, we absolutely. So last month is an example of that. Everyone got busy, I guess, and didn't have those talks in there, and I couldn't wrangle everyone at the last minute in our process. So I just didn't feel it was fair on everyone to try and last minute anything and make sure that we at least gave folks a good week or more just to be able to see what was coming up and, confirm with everyone. So we've skipped it, gave us a bit of a buffer now, gave us the opportunity as well to get some help from some of the awesome folks at SidJS as well. I know we've had folks from Melbourne and Sydney reach out, and across the pond in New Zealand as well. So we'll have some presenters next month from abroad as well, which is awesome. Thank you very much to everyone who's doing that. But please don't hesitate. If it's 3 months from now or 4 months from now, still get your submission in there. We'll be able to keep a dialogue going and give you any support that you need to be able to make it happen. Oh, that is not the one I needed. Great. You do that by this link. There's also the link I keep on tweeting out, which is, kind of filling out a pro forma block, so you can just fill in the blanks. But this is an example of, doing it original style, where you click new issue and just pop in something there. You can see that it gets tagged and gets added to a particular release month, and that way we can help with scheduling. We've got plenty of socials. Hopefully you've seen our Twitter. That's our probably most active one. I try and at least put up the event in Facebook, because it helps to remind folks. And you're on YouTube, so I think that everyone's quite familiar with that one. So all of these live streams are instantly available after the fact. And then we make sure that we try and backfill and upload anything else. BrisJS.org still exists and happens to try and just link through to all of these places. There's some information about us, and also you would be able to see on the present section some of the ideas that you would have. So if anyone makes a request, there's some of those requests up there, and there's other various links about presenting at BrisJS there as well. One of the cool ones that's up there is the job board. Job board is actually just, again, through GitHub. We tag something as a job, and you'll be able to see it through here. It'll be published onto this site automatically, thanks to the magic of APIs. So yeah, if you're interested and you need a job or you have one to post, please pop it there. We'll be able to make sure that somebody sees your ad. Now, we've got sponsorship to make BrisJS happen, even if we're doing this remotely. So thank you very much to the place that I work, just BCCW Global. So they've been sponsoring our Zoom Pro subscription forever. ever since we've moved to this live stream format. If you want to come and work with me, we're hiring for a senior JS dev, essentially. We're trying to build some greenfield platforms, and I'd love to be able to hear from you. So if you're kind of full stacky, back end, front end, please reach out. I'd be very glad to chat to you about it. And that job is also up on our job board. Okie dokie, tonight, without more hesitation, we've got the reactive programming in React with Rx.js by Matt Valley. He's coming up first. And then we'll be going over Stranger Danger. I love that title. Find the vulns before they find you. So Steve's going to be taking us through that one as well. And we'll have plenty of Q&A in between those two sections there. And we'll make sure we get to our polls as well. So yeah, one of the other things that I'll mention is I'm hopefully getting this right, but Ashley Davis did promise a book to go out to everyone as well. I'm going to make sure I organize that in the background, but we're also going to try and give away another copy of that. So we'll come up with a question during Matt's talk, and we'll have the usual Slido poll available, so you can answer that and leave your details there to be able to get one of the writing microservices with Node.js. I think that's a title. Sorry, Ashley. Well, I'll correct myself in a minute. But that's coming out to you for a successful answer of our question tonight. They're really easy, folks. Please participate. It's really just going to be something that you've literally seen 2 slides back. So if you're paying any kind of attention, you should be in the running with a great chance. Okay, I will absolutely stop stalling, and I will make sure that we can get your speakers up now. Where is my stop sharing button? Okay, Matt, are you there? There he is.
Yeah.
How you doing, Matt?
Sharing my screen. Good.
Welcome to BrisJS. Thank you very much for answering the call. And yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to wow everyone tonight with your talk. So take it away.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, BrisbaneJS. I assume you can see my slides, right?
Yes, certainly can.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So this evening's talk, well, in Australian time zone, is about reactive programming in React with Rx.js. And it goes through behind the scenes of building a front-end web application for a platform that I built called Testfully, which we go through that one as well. A bit more than a year ago, when I started doing the R&D phase of this project, just trying to understand the problems of the previous solutions that I used to build React applications and try to find something that solves all of those problems. That was the idea behind it. And primarily, I was looking at a solution that keeps me away from like traditional state management libraries like Redux, not necessarily because I don't like them, but because I just found that it won't work very well for my use cases. And I ended up using Rx.js. And while I was doing this research, I just realized that how limited knowledge sharing and content we have about using Rx.js in React. There's plenty of information about Angular. Obviously, it's very common to use Rx.js with Angular, but I couldn't find a lot of information. There's not much open source libraries. So I started learning things by myself, trying them, and eventually I got it working and decided to come on a stage and just share my thoughts with you. So as I mentioned, this is going to be with React. So hopefully everyone has a basic understanding of React. We can go through that. So let's just start with a typical front-end application. If we want to build an application today on top of a web browser, we need obviously a user interface. In this case, I was using React. And any front-end application also has some sort of business logic that we need to deal with. And obviously, they have a state, the data that we need to use to render some sort of UI. Also, we have navigations. In my case, I wanted something that I can easily navigate between different pages. And every time that I do that one, the URL changes. Sometimes we need to communicate within the app. For example, if you have a widget in the corner of your app that shows how much you have used so far from your data, and another part of your application can contribute to that one. So there is a communication between the different parts of the application that should happen. So I was looking for a solution for that one as well. Interactions with the backends and handling errors. This is pretty much some of the core parts of any front-end application. For Testfully, the case was slightly different from this one. But what is Testfully? Let's go through that one, and then you will have a good understanding of how I use these technologies to solve certain problems. So let's just start by saying that you have an API. In this case, the REST API available on that pink URL in the bottom. So if I curl that URL, I will get this response, which the user is signed up now. If I try to curl that one again, I will get an error, obviously, because the user does exist in our system now. So if you want to test your API today with Node.js, in this example, you can use any other programming language. You will write a code similar to this one. I constructed the information, and I'm just sending it to the server and expecting some values in return. And then you run it, and you get this result. When it comes to Testfully, you define your test cases using our dashboard. As you can see, I have done that one. I defined the payload, the URL, the method, and some sort of information about it. And then you set the validation.
Sorry, Matt. I was just wondering if you could try and increase the size of your presentation. It's just a bit hard to see on the stream, and I presume that people need to be able to understand what you're sending down the line.
Okay.
I think it's because of the shape of your monitor is actually quite wide. So I think Zoom is taking the black bars on the left and right as part of it. So you could probably tell Zoom to just share that one application instead, and that might help a little bit.
Oh, actually, I think I did, but let me try again.
Sorry about that. Just trying to make sure that everyone can get the content.
Yep, I'm back and share. Oh, that's right. I screwed it up. Sorry.
That looks.
Is that better?
It is not. It is the same.
Okay. Yeah, give me a second. I will go through my laptop now, and that should do the job. This should be better.
That looks perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
No worries.
On with the show.
And yeah, so it looks a bit weird now. Hi, but that's fine. So yeah, as I mentioned, basically, you test your API like this. When it comes to Testfully, you test it using our interface. You send a request and you validate your response. Then you can run it in browser and get the results. And the result will be permanently stored in your account, so you can use it anytime you want. And you can group the tests into collections, and you can even run them in background if you want for monitoring purposes. And if something goes wrong with your test, you get alert like this one, as well as if you want to run your test cases in your terminal as a part of your CI/CD, you can run it using this approach as well. Then if you have multiple environments, if you want to test your staging and production environments, you can do that one as well by introducing new environments and using the same test cases to verify multiple environments. And same for configuration. If you have configuration, for example, in this case, the URL of my API can be configured like this. That's the gist of our application. If you look at it, it's a similar application to pretty much what we do in any standard application. We capture forms, we send it to the backend, show it to the basically user. That's just the nature of it. The extra stuff that I needed to have at that time, first one was real-time UI updates. If a user is looking at the monitor and monitoring an API, for example, I wanted to receive the data instantly and show it to them. I was looking for a solution that I can integrate with the WebSockets and things like GraphQL API as well as REST APIs. I had multiple sources, they were using different technologies, and I needed a solution that I can leverage it for multiple purposes. I didn't want to bring multiple solutions, each of them for a specific purpose. And I had one problem that to build this application, I had to use a couple of open source libraries that are quite heavyweight. So the bundle size was actually very big. And so I decided to limit the number of dependencies that I have from the open source community. So the solution meant to cover multiple use cases for me. And that was a criteria. Obviously, what I was looking for based on my previous experience is that stick to whatever React offers and leverage that one because it sticks with you for a longer period of time. Whereas some of the open source libraries that we used in the past, at some point, they become completely redundant because React offers something similar, or they changed the way they work and we had to do major refactorings in our project. I needed a solution that I can separate UI from other things. For example, I didn't want to really trigger data fetching from my UI or integrate with the state management from my UI, something that you kind of have to do within libraries like Redux. I wanted a bit of separation. As I mentioned, I was looking for a solution that helps me to have an application that the user can copy any URL, paste it, and lands in the same page within the same state. And something that I could communicate, this was really important for us because when you do a real-time, basically, synchronization, and when the data comes to your application, the data goes to multiple areas of your application. And sometimes one piece changes the data and the other part of your UI needs to know about that change as well. So something that I can use for communication between different components, that would be very nice. I was looking for a decentralized state management, whereas like a Redux is a solution that is centralized state management. And I had some issues with that one. I was looking for something that I can just decentralize it. I don't want to have one state. I want to have multiple states that they work independent of each other. And the solution meant to work both JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, and React. So it shouldn't be something specific to React. And obviously, I was looking for something that I can easily unit test it as well. So I ended up using reactive programming, just following reactive programming paradigm and using Rx.js. And we are going to go through that one now, that what that means actually. So basically, reactive programming is a paradigm like functional programming or object-oriented programming. The difference is that with reactive programming, everything is around the concept of asynchronous data streams. So when we say asynchronous data streams, we don't necessarily mean the data that we receive from backends. Anything that is asynchronous can be considered a data stream. For example, if user is clicking on a button multiple times, that is called asynchronous data streams. Or when user scrolls on the page, the position of the scroll bar on the page is asynchronous data streams. So these are all considered asynchronous. And it is very important from the perspective of a front-end engineer that to consider these kind of things asynchronous data streams, because then you see how I'm using Rx.js to work with these asynchronous data streams. Going to observer pattern, which is a concept around those asynchronous data streams. It says if you have those data streams, and if you subscribe to those, you will get a copy of the data as soon as the data is available. If that source of data have 10 subscribers, all of them receive a copy of the data. That's the concept of it. And Reactivex is a concept that if you get into reactive programming, you hear this one a lot. It is a set of APIs written in different programming languages, including JavaScript, to work with those asynchronous data streams, which we call them simply observables. So that is the API. And what is Rx.js? Rx.js is basically reactive extension written in JavaScript. And that's what we are going to use today, and we are going to go through them. But let's discuss about observables, because as we mentioned, these asynchronous data streams are at core of basically reactive programming. So observables are asynchronous, which means that the data comes in a different interval, and whoever subscribes to the data receives a copy of the data independent of the others. And like some other sort of streams, they complete. So it's not like that they go forever. They complete at some point, and you will receive notification that, okay, the data is completed now. And sometimes they error. And when I say error, I don't mean necessarily network error, just any kind of error. And that happens. If one observable emits error, it means that it is the end of the story for that observable. You can't subscribe to that one anymore, and you should not expect any data to come to that observable, because that's just end of the story for that stream of data. So what does Rx.js do in this world of reactive programming? So one thing that it does is basically helps you to create those observables, because those observables you can create from different sources. For example, if you have a WebSocket, which is the most common usage of observable, is that if you have a WebSocket, you can create an observable from that WebSocket. And that's not limited to that one. For example, you can create observable from promises, you can create observable from array, or from anything else that you want. And you can use Rx.js to create an observable for that purpose. So you can be very creative and just do whatever you want. It provides those APIs for you. And the next thing that it does is that obviously these streams of data come independent of each other. If you're subscribed to multiple streams of data, you can also use Rx.js to combine them. Let's say that you have one stream of data that contains weather forecasts for different cities in Australia, and you have another stream of data that basically emits the favorite cities of a user. And then you can combine the two to one single stream, which contains both the city information, their weather forecast, and if it's favorited by that specific user or not. We will see how we will use this one in future. And the most powerful aspect of Rx.js, and something that makes it so special, is it enables you to transform one source of data to another source of data on the fly. So if you have, like, for example, one source of data is a JSON object coming, emitting, and then you can transform that one, for example, to a PDF file, or you can transform it to another object with a different shape. So you can do whatever you want to do with those transformers, which in Rx.js, they are called basically operators. What is special about them is that you can create your own, so you are not limited to use what Rx.js offers, but also Rx.js offers a great range of operators. You can think of them like array.map or array.filter, but way more powerful, and they work on asynchronous data streams. And the last thing is that you can subscribe to them. So when you have an observable you've created somehow, then you can start receiving data. You can use Rx.js directly with React, and that's totally possible. But I found it is quite difficult to integrate with React, and you will have quite a lot of boilerplate code. You need to be careful about memory leaks to subscribe and unsubscribe properly. The experience wasn't that great, and there were a couple of missing items that I couldn't get it working just by using Rx.js and React. So I started researching, and I found a library called Refrac, which is a very lightweight library, about I think 2 kilobytes, and it works very well with Rx.js and React. So it does offer a couple of features that are missing in Rx.js, because Rx.js is very generic. It doesn't have anything to do with React. It's just generic implementation. But Refrac offers a couple of features that are unique to React world, and it helps a lot. One of them is that you can auto-subscribe and unsubscribe from your observables, which means that you won't have memory leaks and you won't have boilerplate code. And that's very important. One other thing is that within Refrac world, which we see the example later, you can observe props of your component. If you look at that in React, when we keep receiving these props from another component to our component, that's basically a stream of data coming. With refract, you can actually observe those values. And the next thing that you can do is that when you receive these observables and basically use them, you can transform them to a couple of interesting things that is not available within Rx.js. For example, you can transform them to props for your component that you are rendering, and or you can take side effects or any other thing. I forgot that to mention that refract acts as a higher order component. So it wraps your component and it can inject information like the props to your component. Another thing is that it creates observables based on callback props. So for example, if you have a button and that has an onclick, you can create a stream of onclick events from that callback, which we will see in action a bit later. So these 4 features help me to basically build what I wanted. But also, I haven't used this specific feature. You can, for example, transform streams of data straight away to the components, which is quite interesting. I'm going to build a counter application because it's very simple, and I think everybody has seen this example before, but I will go through the standard React code, React plus Redux, and then we go through the Rx.js example. So this is the nature of our application, basically. It's very simple, nothing fancy. This is the implementation in vanilla React. So we have a section for state management. We are using use state. We have a UI which triggers the on increment and on decrement on those 2 buttons, which basically increments and decrements the value. That's okay. Obviously, problems is that the state management is combined with UI, and I cannot test this one easily. I can test it, but it's not as straightforward as it could be when I abstract it away. We could solve some of these problems by using Redux. For example, here I pulled state management completely out of this component. I just subscribe to that one and then render it. This is a better solution in my opinion, but it's not ideal because still we have this integration with our state management library inside our component, which itself introduces a couple of challenges related to testing. Ideally, my component should look like this. I have some props, which one of them is value, and there are callbacks, and that's the UI. That's it. We used to have this presentational components versus stateful components and these kind of concepts. I wish we always stay with that word because that was kind of nicer in my opinion. But now my component looks like this. How do I inject my data? So we are going to see how we can use Rx.js to do the same kind of things that we did with user state or Redux. So this is implementation of basically a higher order component that is using Rx.js and refract and renders the counter component in the bottom. So we go through this code base. First part, I need to provide 2 props to my component, on increment and on decrement. So refract offers an API for doing that one, creates callback prop for you, but also it returns 1 observable as well. So that's how I created 2 callback props. In the next section, we discussed that you can map one stream of data to another stream of data. Here I'm mapping on increment stream every time user clicks on the plus button to number 1, just emits 1, 1, 1, and decrement emits -1. And then in the next section, we mentioned that you can combine observables. I use Rx.js to combine increments and decrements and transform them using an operator that is similar to reduce, and it always basically it generates the latest value and it keeps it in memory for you. So that's the value. And last but not least, here what I do is that I transform value to a set of props to my component. And then I return the final stream of data, which refract uses to pass to the counter. As a result of it, counter always receives a value prop and basically two functions. So this is a very, very simple use cases of it. So if you try testfully.io, go through different UIs, everything in that application is built on top of these principles, obviously a bit more complicated and complex than this, but it's the same basically principles. And that's how we did it. I did this one for a relatively large application, and these are the stuff that I have learned so far about this programming paradigm. Observables are very simple, yet very powerful in my opinion. You can do a lot of things with them. It's not necessarily replacement for the Redux. You can do that one. You can do data fetching, for example. The entire data fetching of my application is using Rx.js, and you can use communication. For example, in the app, if there is an error, you see it on the screen, and actually there's two apps communicating with each other. I built my routing logic around Rx.js as well that helps me to basically re-render my component, fetch new data when user clicks on the different links. So it's quite powerful. And I found that React and reactive programming is a really good match because what made React very special was that you can keep re-rendering your UI. And it is totally fine within React that your components keep re-rendered. That's just the nature of React. And so it's kind of, it says props are strings within React. When you send it, React decides if it needs to do something on the DOM or not. On the other side, reactive programming is about the streams of data. And refract is the one that plugs these two pieces together. Rx.js was the fun part. I found that very difficult to learn Rx.js, and I was reading about it. Most people complain about it because it's just, it's a different paradigm of programming. It's like functional programming for a person that has done object-oriented programming for entire his or her career. So it's kind of a bit different story. So you need to spend a lot of time learning the concept, practicing it, but at some point you will have your aha moment and you will basically get used to it. And I think the key to successfully use Rx.js in your project or reactive programming in general, in my opinion, is to master the Rx.js operator. That's the powerful part of it. The rest is quite simple, actually. There is nothing special. So make sure that you spend a lot of time practicing the operators, understanding how they work, you can use them, because that's the magic, actually. In terms of resources, I wouldn't recommend, for example, going to rxjs.dev as a beginner if you haven't had experience, because that documentation is written. It's great documentation, but it's written for somebody that has already understanding of it. But there are other websites that are teaching Rx.js, and I think they have done a better job of preparing content for beginners. That's pretty much what I have. I can later on dial back and show some of the code that I have written for Testfully. So, if you have questions specifically about that part, I can show you, but I didn't want to show it straight away and just take your time. I think it's good if you have some time to think about it, and I will be on the call to answer any questions. But yeah, that's pretty much for today. Thank you so much. Our website is testfully.io. You can sign up. And if you sign up within the next 3 hours, I will pick 5 basically new users that signed up during the next 3 hours. I will give them our premium account for 3 months for free, so you can try our service as well. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have for today.
That's awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for that presentation. That's fantastic. Let's see if we can get into some Q&A. Hopefully we can do, hang on, let me get my questions up. Great. Okay, so we've got a couple of anonymous questions that have come in here. If anyone there on the stream wants to throw in some last minute questions as well, please feel free. If there's anything that you feel that you'd love to get some more detail on, we'll start going through them now. The first one here is, let me see if I can get this right. If you have a lot of common observation across components, what's your preferred way to reduce boilerplate for the same transformation and presentation? Okay, right. So they're trying to make it the most efficient in terms of your front-end implementation. Any ideas?
Yeah, definitely define your own custom operator. So just write it and just pass it to your basically stream. As long as it just matches the expected API, you should be able to use that one. And that's actually a good idea.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a built-in version of code reduction right there. The next one here was, how long would you say it takes to get used to the shift through learning curve of Rx.js's operators?
Good question.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah, it took a while. I think it took a month for me to actually understand things, but it really ticked when I started actually building a real application. And just, I think just examples of, oh, I will send an array, I will get another array. It's okay, but you need to deal with the real use cases. I highly recommend building something if you want to really learn the operators and try to, put yourself into trouble. Or how should I do this one? Or how can I do the other things? That's pretty much what happened to me.
Awesome. Good advice right there. It's a hackathon, perhaps. It's a good battle testing for your data operations. The next one that I've got here is, are there any other common libraries or frameworks utilizing observables this deeply? I guess, yeah, they've kind of not had the same spotlight that maybe they should.
Yeah, I think Refrac, it was the one I used, but I haven't seen much in React world. Obviously, in Angular, they're using deeply, but I haven't seen actually much of frameworks within React, which is a surprise.
Yeah. So yeah, your observables are basically at the heart of Angular. So they're not exactly new over there. But yeah, in React world, I guess everyone's been so used to the speed and the sort of free updates, so to speak. But yeah, going through and utilizing observables against the data layer is going to be extremely efficient. One of the other ones in here is, I see you're using Refract via an HOC. Do you know if there are plans for that package to implement hooks, higher order component?
I don't think that they use hook, but I'm just trying to if you want to use hook, I guess you can, but you won't be able to use some of the features that, I guess they built using HOC because that way they could observe props, they could observe other things. I don't know if that's actually, it's possible using hooks, but maybe they do, I'm not sure.
Sounds like a great place for somebody to make an open source contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. One that just came in here, what are some of the resources you'd suggest for someone interested in getting started with Rx.js?
So this website that I used, let me just quickly check. I don't remember the name of the site. Yeah, there is this website called learnrxjs.io. That was the one that I basically started learning with that one. That was a good one, actually.
Good tip. Sounds awesome. That's all of the prepared ones, unless there's one about to hit my screen in like 1 second. Are there any any other tips you wanted to share or anything else you wanted to finish up with?
Yes, there is an operator called tap in Rx.js that is basically console.log. You can tap on a stream. You can do whatever you want with that thing, which is a console.log. You should probably use this one. If you are new to Rx.js to see what streams of data are coming and going. One good thing that I totally forgot about is Observable is that Observable at the moment there is a proposal for it to be part of the standard JavaScript. So it is not in the like a final stage. It is quite in the earliest stage. I hope we see Observables as a standard basically API within browsers, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. That's great stuff. All right. And then, yeah, people can check out the underlying implementations as well on Reactivex.io as well. That's the underlying idea of having the observer pattern done right, is how they pitch it. So if you've got a multi-language platform there, you could try and utilize it across multiple sets of your stack as well. Or yeah, absolutely go check all of these bits and pieces out. I think it's a nice way to go and handle a lot of your use cases for watching your data and watching changes come in. Thanks very much, Matt. That's fantastic. Everyone give him a virtual applause. Yeah, that's been fantastic. Also, yeah, here we go. There's another another mention in the Q&A here. FYI, Apollo client and React Apollo, so the GraphQL client libraries, they also use Zen observables under the hood. So there you go. We've learned something additional. Thank you for that, anonymous questioner, answer giver in this case. Thanks very much, everyone. All good. We're going to jump to our second speaker then, if there's no further questions. Thank you again, Matt. We're going to say hi to developer Steve. He's there he is, floating around in his spaceship again.
Wait, I can go to spaceship mode. Let me just see
dear.
if I can got to get this lined up. There we go.
Nice.
Whatever.
Fantastic.
Now I'm going to switch back to Jedi. Whoop, that's Greenfield. There we go. Wasn't that a quick transition?
Very. Take it away, mate. Thank you for coming and joining us and answering the call this month.
No, thank you for having me. Can you see my screen?
Certainly can, and it is properly aspected.
Okay, that was my next question. Let me just move a couple things around. All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. Amazing to be here. I always love hanging out with the BrisJS crew. Yous are amazing. Yous, that's a word. Yeah, it's from the Australian English language. But yeah, hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us, those that are abroad as well. See, the magic of video brings everyone together. Before we get underway, I also just want to extend the acknowledgement of the country from the start and a heartfelt respect and acknowledgement to the Wanganja people who are the traditional owners here in Narromine. So Narromine is a smallish town just off the side of Dubbo out in central New South Wales. So yes, we are having issues with mice at the moment. I've been 3D printing mouse traps. Funny fact. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that today. We're going to talk about vulnerabilities because this actually surprised me when I started scanning some of the platforms like I've used throughout the years. But anyway, we're getting into spoilers now. I do have some slides for this. Did you want a quick YouTube hack that I discovered earlier today? So if everyone needs to hit that like button right now, and I can show you exactly what it is. Hang on, I'm going to switch back and have a look to see if there's more likes. There's only 2 likes. No one's done it. Well, it's not going to work now. Oh, all right. Well, I can tell you about that later. Oh, literally no one did it. Okay, cool. Well, that didn't work. Anyway, so I do have for those that don't know, I do have a lot of developer jokes, and today is no exception. In fact, this one is super, super new. And I was telling Kevin about this earlier today when we were talking. So here we go. Why did the vulnerability get tired? You won't get it. You won't get it. Because it ransomware. Oh, there we go. And that was so there is actually a facepalm emoji in YouTube. Feel free to use it in the chat, please. And yeah, also add your questions not related to that joke. Well, kind of related to that joke, but yeah, add your questions to the Slido and we'll get to those at the end. But hello, for those that don't know me, I'm developer Steve. That is actually part of my legal name, and I think I may have told this story last time I did a talk at BrisJS, but for those that haven't heard it, when I got married a few years ago, because I've been doing advocacy for a number of years now, when I got my name changed to my married name, so Cooper plus Houchin became Coochin, developer Steve's my middle name, legally. So there you go. But yeah, I've been coding for some time now. Going to talk about that in the future slides, so I won't do spoilers, but yeah, and also being able to hang out with amazing communities like BrisJS over the years and just geek out and connect to devs, like makers, all sorts of amazing folks, and well, just geek out and swap stories, learn a lot of stuff from these groups. And like Kev said at the start, if you are looking to do a talk, please submit those talks, because, well, as community, like we all grow together when we get to share like stuff together. So please share those talks. If you need help putting it together, I'm more than happy to help on the talk side of things. Done loads of them. So feel free to reach out. I mean, no surprises. I'm Developer Steve kind of everywhere, even Weibo. So yeah, feel free to reach out. So like I said, I have been coding for many, many years. My first programming language, my first programming language was QBasic, for those that remember it, back in the day. There were no libraries back in those days. They were simpler times. That also meant you had to rebuild like entire chunks of code over and over, or copy paste and rebuild some stuff, but there were no libraries. So literally you were building everything from scratch. This is in the days of like 10 print hello, 20 go to 10, and it would like scroll through the screen. It's a great language, but I mean, as the name suggests, it was basic. And then going through like my career as a developer in freelancing and building out ad hoc projects in my spare time, in between learning stuff and, well, working full time. But and later on, even through agency, libraries and using dependencies with libraries and using libraries in general just sped up app development. Because as you all know, like, and we don't even think about it these days. You literally just drag in a library, use a couple lines of code, and hey presto, you've got a user input. You've got some functionality building out inside an app. You're building apps for end users. But I mean, that's just literally just the tip of the iceberg. The thing we don't often know, and like I've often pondered this throughout the years, is like, what is this installing? Like, what is this putting into my stack? What is this letting in? There's potentially things hidden underneath the water, underneath the surface even, that I don't know what's being added in there. And I still have, I want to say fond memories, but maybe slightly on the nightmarish side, times where I've had to clean up so many websites over the years because there's been that vulnerability that's let something in, which in turn let something else in, and several other thousand things. And then you get that really big server build at the end and you're like, what's running on there? Trying to pick through logs to find out what is actually running, or you're looking through memory. Oh, so many times. And of course, as we know, like our apps that we're building out to ideally make user lives easier. And primarily that's why I became a dev, to build apps that help streamline people's lives, be it ordering some food, ordering a e-commerce thing, interacting with each other, watching YouTube live streams, like this one. Like they're the reasons that I build out these apps as a dev, is to help, you know, make lives easier for users, make people's lives more streamlined. But like so many times, I know you all can relate to this, all those times you've copy pasted code from Stack Overflow and you've copy pasted it potentially without knowing what it does. Like I've been there, I've done that too. But at the same time, you don't exactly know what it's letting into your stack. Again, like you could just be installing npm, installing that one thing that you don't necessarily know what it's going to be doing. And that's something that we've recognized just through the years, is also that, well, it's no secret that 90% of a code base is open source now, because it does help build out some really, really great app experiences really, really quick. But also at the same time, there's 80% of vulnerabilities are found in direct dependencies. So when you install that library, it pulls in 3 other libraries, that pulls in 2 other libraries and 1 other library, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've all been here. And that's literally, I have some examples of this too that we're going to look at today, just how easy or how unaware just installing that one thing can pull in other things that are going to open doors into your stack in whole new ways. And sometimes it's not even that one thing that you install. Like I said, it's going to let other things in with it that you may not be aware of. And I'm just going to take that note. So this is looking at some of the open source dependencies, the open source libraries and dependencies that get pulled in. These are really amazing communities. As we all know, a lot of us contribute to them. And if you aren't contributing back, please, do what you can to contribute back, particularly if you're using some of these libraries or some of these open source projects. A lot of the times we find like there's a delay in getting things patched, getting security vulnerabilities fixed, because it takes the community, the open source community, time to identify the problem, run a fix, do testing on it, do a release candidate sometimes, and then be able to actually release it. But I'll get into that in a little bit later. So again, like we build out these amazing app experiences sometimes, well, to help facilitate, make people's lives easier. But in turn, like that's potentially letting things into stacks, because from amazing ecosystems like NPM, for example, it's just opening up doors into your stack on top of those amazing experiences you're building. And you spend so much time trying to win over users' trust in using that application. Like you need to make sure you're protecting and looking after the users that you're building these things for. It's no secret too, and I know you've all seen this too, that the number of new packages created on ecosystems, on the NPM ecosystem each year is growing. And quite often you also see sometimes like really big libraries split off into smaller ones, particularly when there's certain parts of the library's functionality that can be included into other ecosystems, other libraries. A lot of the times they will split off into smaller ones as well. So it's no secret that this is a growing ecosystem. And on top of that, though, does come the vulnerabilities. And it potentially can also be a combination of libraries sometimes that is going to let things in. Now, I have some examples. So this is looking at a new, not necessarily a new concept, but a concept that is becoming more prominent now, is the whole idea around open source supply chain security. And like I said, it's sometimes that one library that pulls in several other libraries that is going to cause, that starts to make us look at the open source supply chain security. For example, EventStream in 2018, and you might have seen this one in the news and a lot of NPM was talking about it at the time, but EventStream was one of those dependencies that got pulled into via a main library install. And it was downloaded millions of times a week. And you can imagine, like, this isn't just being pulled into one lot of server infrastructure or one particular stack. Like, this is being pulled into a lot of stacks. And once that door's open, that is potentially letting in all sorts of nasty things, because that exploit, like a file path traversal, for the traversal exploit, say that 3 times fast, can also then let in other things into your stack as well, which gets a bit annoying to clean up, because you got to go through and find it, you got to identify it, you got to find all the things that came in with it. Like, it's a whole can of worms, literally. Oh, I need a can of worms meme for this slide. But it wasn't just that, like, it didn't stop just there. In 2020, we saw the same thing again with Electron Native Notify. Now, this was actually stealing cryptocurrency, not necessarily Doge, from the Condona Agma wallet. And yeah, this was also a big one. So much so that like NPM themselves came out and was like, yeah, everyone needs to check their stack because this isn't good. And trust me, the last thing you want anyone to do is to be mining Doge on your server infrastructure. You do not want to be getting that bill at the end of the month or at the end of the billing cycle and find out that someone else is making money off your infrastructure. Please don't do that. Also, on the other side of that, if you are maintaining like a Chrome extension or something that someone can inject something into and create some vulnerabilities, like the Komodo Agma wallet, for example, you want to protect your users, because fundamentally that's what you're building for. So one thing we do, and I have a bit more on this too, because we have some news out recently I wanted to share, but we have a product called Sneak Advisor. It's free to use, but we work with a lot of the big open source libraries to make sure everyone's kept safe, because at the end of the day, like that's what our main goal is, to make sure we work with a lot of these communities to help keep anyone safe. If there is anyone, particularly from the BrisJS group, or just anyone watching this video really, that does have is a maintainer of a community or is part of a community that isn't yet on this, please reach out. Would love to see how we can help and help keep it safe. Now, the other thing I wanted to say to that too is we recently announced that we're working we're working on the responsibility side for Node.js ecosystem on the vulnerability disclosure program. And again, the whole idea around this is to help keep vulnerabilities out of a lot of the commonly used libraries, and in particular around the open source security supply chain side of things as well. Because once that one bug gets in, well, you can imagine what happens. We want to make sure we keep that all safe. The links on the screen, but also we'll share this later. If you have also identified a vulnerability, like there's a whole process around reporting and whatnot, and yeah, we can take a look and get that reported up and get that fixed, hopefully. So one of the things we've noticed as well, and again, I'm going to look at this, literally my next slide is getting straight into code. So I have 3 things to show you, including, no, we're going to keep that. But one of the things we have noticed, particularly with a lot of the scanning we've been doing, is that a lot of the vulnerabilities are coming in through indirect dependencies. And I have a prime example of that to show you right now. Let's get into the demo side of things. So I've got some that I prepared earlier. Let me just switch back to the chat to make sure you can see my screen okay. Yes, and hi Glenn, I just saw that I've missed Steve's jokes. I'm going to throw in some more right at the end. Anyway, let's get into the demo. I'm going to switch back over to my other screen. There we go. All right, so this first one, this is using one of our demos on one of our demo repos on the Snyk GitHub, as you can see there. This is free to use. Now, I need to point out here, this is not for production, and I'll show you why. This is actually one of the times where we want the vulnerabilities because it's totally for training and demo purposes. So, but yeah, totally not for use in production. Oh, I forgot, I was going to do a scene change here. Hang on, let me do this and just switch this over because now I'm in my gray hat hacking scene. Hey. All right, let me switch back. That's just, there we go. So like I said, we're using the demo from the Snyk GitHub. Please feel free to go check it out. There's a whole bunch of exploits in here as well. So they're all documented and outlined. But one we're going to be looking at today is a cross-site scripting attack using a particular version of the marked library. So as you can see here, anywhere between 0.3.1 to 0.3.6 is, or below 3.6, you shouldn't use. So the latest version of this is actually, this is fixed, but this one in particular we're using is 0.3.5. There it is, 0.3.5. And so let's give it a go. So like the name might suggest, this is a markdown library. So it's basic markdown. I can do, this is a bold statement. Hey, see what I did there, Glenn? So yeah, you can do some like basic markdown in it, which of course, and you can do regular, let's do regular, this is basic to-do app using the marked library. And of course, one thing we can do in marked is you can do a link, so square brackets, round brackets, and you can put your link in and it'll do a link, which is, you know, if I click that now, it'll link off to the website. But one thing we can do, and I've done this before doing some pen testing too, is with an XSS attack anyway, you can inject JavaScript into input fields sometimes. And ideally, like the marked library, for example, is going to have some type of sanitization in there, like that. So inside the app config, the sanitize is true. And most of the time, this is just going to do some regex stuff. Who loves regex? This is just going to do some regex to try and identify a particular character input to know that it's basically bad and should strip it out. So if we do something like this, which is essentially a link in with a little bit of JavaScript in, will it work? No. So the regex kicks in and it is able to sanitize it a little bit, which is what you would expect to happen. So the one other thing you can do, and there's some really good OWASP write-ups on injection attacks. is then be able to HTML some of the characters to try and get around the regex, right? So similar type thing, we're doing just some JavaScript inside a markdown link. And as you can see there, we've converted some of the characters to HTML to try and get around that, which won't work as well. It will pick that up. But if we then leverage some more JavaScript and use this as part of the actual JavaScript injection alongside some of the HTML characters, then we can get around it, which is literally what this particular library, what its vulnerability. See, this box is alerting. That was another pun. You can feel Glenn's face palms right now. It's amazing. Yeah, and that's what we need to be watching out for, because that whole sanitization piece right there, that is some trouble right in the bag. But I got another one for you to show you some more. Just wanted to show, so I've been keeping an eye on this like literally daily to see, this is the Sneak vulnerability library. You can actually see some of the new versions of particular libraries. And this is totally worth checking out because you need to be able to identify something you might already be using or are thinking to use. This is a great place to be able to check to see whether it's safe to use. But one of the third demo I will do as part of this, I'll show you an even easier way. I just find this interesting because you can see new stuff as it appears. Yeah, and one of the things I saw literally last week was the current version of TensorFlow, not JS related, but 2.5.0 on TensorFlow. There's every vulnerability in there at the moment. So hopefully that community is able to get that fixed up. But again, great place to see what is current at the moment. But I will show you how to scan something in a moment. So let's do a file. This is another demo from the Sneak GitHub. I'll log in. Chrome's going to tell me that this is very insecure password to be using. Oh, it's Heroku. It's going to take a moment to wake up. This is basically an example of a file traversal hack. So similar thing to what we just did, except we're actually going to upload a file once Heroku decides to wake up, which is any moment now, Heroku. Looking at you. I did wake this up before and it went back to sleep. Isn't that a doozy? Need to switch to my this is fine scene. It should wake up in a moment. While that's doing that, hey, there we go. All right, let's try that again. Oh, actually, I think I typed the password. That was the problem. Okay. Any second now. Hey, there we go. Yeah, there we go. There's the change your password warning. That's what happens when you use demo accounts. All right, so similar to before, we can create basic to-do items. So I can put by Doge much well. Let's go with that one. The date's off on this, but I need to set it. Set it. There we go. And it doesn't matter what priority I put it in. Put it to medium. Yeah, I would have bought Doge in 1970. That would have been great. All right, so we'll do there we go. So we can do basic line entries. So let's upload our optimized file because the vulnerability that we're using. All right, so this is a file traversal hack. So basically inside this zip, it's doing a whole bunch of .. to basically, well, traverse the actual file system that we're uploading to. And then this is using some vulnerabilities inside a decompressed library. And there's a file in there just for good measure. There's like a text file. But essentially what we're going to do is override one of the basic libraries so that we can do some, see, this is fine. It says good.txt. It should be all right. So unsuspecting user now comes along and tries to do, for example, we'll just set the date to then and set it to medium again because it's a medium thing. And we've hijacked it. That's basically it. And literally that was replacing some base functionality inside the framework that, well, affects user input. And you can imagine how many different ways that particular function could then be used because, well, I mean, this was relatively harmless, but if I really wanted to do really, really bad stuff, it's all gray hat. So we didn't want to do that. Plus it's running on my computer. So, well, it's running on Heroku. It's running on my Heroku. There was one more thing I wanted to show. So recently, I've been looking through some frameworks that I've been using, and you can probably see where I'm going with this, because anyone here used NPM's Ghost? I know I have and do, and I love it as much as you all. But so I have here inside this folder the latest version. I think you can already see where I'm going with this. I can feel it already. I'm going, no. So this is literally the latest version of npm Ghost, and I ran command line, which you can brew install sneak command line. It's kind of handy for while doing this sort of stuff. And if I do a sneak test, for example, and give it a couple moments because it's going to scan stuff. It's not like Heroku; it's relatively fast, but it uses the package.json to send it off, and well, you can see right here there's a couple of vulnerabilities. So it found 22 and it has 37. And we've got quite the gambit. We've got regular denial of service, remote code execution, prototype pollution, command injection, prototype pollution, denial of service, regular expression, command injection. Some of these can be fixed literally with a version update. Some of them are not yet fixable, but are known. So anyway, I just wanted to flag that one because I was a bit surprised at that one too, particularly because there was that big push a few years ago from everyone moving from WordPress because of security issues. And anyway, just know what you're installing and do some due diligence on particularly the versions that you're using, because the last thing you want to do is compromise those users that you're building like these things for, or like let something into your server that you then get a really nasty build for, because I've been there before and it's not fun. They weren't mining Doge, they were doing some other stuff, but anyway, and that plays into this slide because yeah, make sure you know what you're letting in and don't let anything in that, well, you haven't done some due diligence on, or at least scanned with a SaaS tool, with a tool that is going to look at your source code, look at your libraries, look at your dependencies, and just know what you're letting in. But of course, as we all know in the dev world, like that's only part of the journey now. It's only part of that iceberg. Like in the cloud native world, your app is more than your code because you're deploying onto much bigger infrastructure. Be it in the world of Docker, which incidentally 242 billion downloads to date of containers. And containers, we found, also carry a lot of these vulnerabilities with them. So you also need to be scanning containers as well. The default node images, for example, they do carry a lot of the vulnerabilities with them as well, literally like the ones we just showed. And it doesn't just happen that you need to be scanning at the code front. You also need to be scanning the infrastructure you're deploying your nicely cleaned, newly cleaned code on to make sure you're picking these things up. Or as I like to think of it, and this is my other pun, with great containerization comes a great responsibility. And that is totally true. Like you need to make sure that you're taking all this time to build a great app for users to be able to do all the things on, and making sure it's nice and clean, but you need to make sure it's also going into clean environments, particularly at scale, because you think that one container starts as, well, one container and quickly explodes into many, 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 many containers. So please be scanning them, or even building them from actual base images. Consistently year after year, we've actually seen that the top 10 Docker base images are carrying security vulnerabilities with them literally out of the box by default, or out of the container. Might be a joke in that. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Like, make sure you know what you're actually deploying onto, because that is super important. Part of the holistic scanning that we do, you can actually hook up your containers as part of the scan to make sure that you're actually deploying clean containers, that you're deploying containers that are vulnerability free. In particular, also ongoingly scanning them as well, because once you do that npm update, like potentially you're pulling in things again that you've already either tried to clean up or that you're just unaware of, particularly as versions go through. And like I said, sometimes it's a combination of particular environments, particular Docker containers with particular libraries, dependencies, etc., etc. Don't let anyone deploy a Doge miner onto your platform, please, or at least be getting the Doge yourself. But yeah, make sure you know what you're deploying. And the same goes for like in a wider infrastructure as code as well. Like make sure you know what's being deployed and that your environment's as clean as it possibly can be, because I mean, that's so important. Anyway, some final takeaways just on that. Like I said, make sure you scan your source code. Make sure you know what's in there. Make sure you know what's in your dependencies, in your libraries, what you're using, and just the risk is associated with it. And yeah, just be aware of what's in there. Do some due diligence, like take the time to make sure keeping users safe, keeping infrastructure safe. Definitely keeping infrastructure safe. That is super important. If you're looking to learn more on the DevSec side of things, we've got DevSecCon coming up on the 23rd and 24th of June. It's free to attend. There's some great talks in there. Everything from workflow to authentication to security vulnerabilities and finding them, infrastructure as code, full works. There's some really solid speakers in there. I literally helped with the CFP for it, so totally worth checking out. And just finally, please use your developer superpowers for good. I know you all do. And just be excellent to each other, plus contribute back. Anyway, that was a lot of takeaways. Thank you very much. And that is... Let me switch back. Oh, it's Steve. I'm not in grey hat anymore.
Thanks very much, Developer Steve. That was good. That was really good. I learned some things. Holy crap, I'm going to be scanning containers now.
Yes.
even if they are just on my machine. Now I'm paranoid.
Well, yeah, and like even like there was some I don't want to say another language framework on here, but there was some other language frameworks that I've used previously that I was scanning going, I had no idea, but this explains why I was getting so much work cleaning them.
Yeah, no, you need not have fear. We're not mean to other languages here. We just like JS. So yeah, you can name if you want, but maybe it's better to protect the innocent.
Let me unshare that. I just realized we did get some more likes. I think I realized this while I was going through the slides, but there was the delay and I didn't allow the time for the delay. But anyway, the hack was I was trying to get you some more likes. So there we go. That was.
I'm always appreciative of that. Thank you indeed, everyone. Questions? We got a few. I think cool. Everyone was just engaged in taking everything in, but we do have a few. How much, like this was early on, I saw this one pop up almost like in the first few minutes. How much coverage does NPM audit really provide us? Do we actually have to sit and audit every dependency by hand? I think there's a very tired developer there, but yeah.
Yes, no. Even I would use both. So use a SAS tool, but then also the NPM audit. It's always good to have a second opinion, particularly with security stuff.
I guess that leads into the next question. Should we run multiple application security testing services to scan our code?
Yes, we've got a free tier. So please, yeah, just make sure you're scanning that with something because yeah, we keep everyone safe.
I think this is a comment on the TensorFlow thing you said. I wonder if TensorFlow.js is subject to TensorFlow's main bugs. So as in, because there's TensorFlow.js.
So I was looking to do some demos actually. There was one that I was looking to do with an XSS attack using a handwritten sign, which I'm still potentially looking at doing because that would be fun. And then also through a chatbot. So potentially yes, but I haven't dug around enough into it yet. But worth looking into, particularly if you're using it.
That would be cool, actually, to demo. Not the vulnerability, but to demo.
I know. Well, to be the chatbot side of things, I was thinking it would literally be like talking itself into doing an XSS, but that just gets into a whole, meta rabbit hole.
Makes sense. Somebody just wrote sneak test versus NPM audit. They must have seen the command. Tell us what the benefits are of the sneak test command versus NPM audit. What does it do differently?
So one thing you can do, and I was tempted to do it, but that was going to take a while to go through them all, is Sneak Wizard will also try and patch and fix where it can as well. because sometimes we get patches out before the main repos had time to review and do a release candidate and do, anyway, all the things. So you can often patch or upgrade before main repo does.
Sweet, sounds good. I knew there was a reason why you joined them.
Just because I get to play with fun demos that are vulnerable.
This is true.
Yeah,
this is true. Awesome sauce. Well, thank you so much. Anyone else with any last minute questions? I'm just gonna go check the stream. There's laughing. There's waving. That's great. All right. There's clapping. All right. Everyone loves it. That's good. Another round of applause. Thank you very much. Much appreciate all the time and effort, and thank you for coming and volunteering a chat for everyone today. Cool beans. I'm gonna start doing closing. Is there anything you want to close with before you go? You have gone.
No. I can't think of anything. Cool. I can tell some more jokes, but I'd have to remember some.
Fantastic. All good. All right. Well, I'm just going to throw up one slide here. One sec. Just because I did mention it. Thank you, Zoom. There we go. Yeah. So as per, wait, what month was it? April. I want to say April. Then we actually had Ashley Davis offering a couple of copies of his book for answering the Slido poll. So the first one, I'll get him to pick out the invalid answers and the valid answers because it was too close to call for me. And then we'll pick out the winner with the random number generator after that. But for this month, we'll do the same thing, and then we'll announce both in the next BrisJS. The winners will be notified before that via email. So yeah, if you have already gone to our poll items on Slido, there's a question in there. I might actually just read it out. Let me go to the live poll section of the Slido, if it will load for me. And the question was, what are 2 of the 4 things that Rx.js does at a high level? So this was presented in Matt Valley's talk tonight. So hopefully you kept an eye out, you had your listening ears on, you took all that information in. There's clearly some obvious ways to recount that information, since we have a live stream that you can watch again. So there's a few ways to get in on there. Please get your submissions in, and yeah, we'll give away a couple of copies of that wonderful book. And that's a wrap, everyone. That's another month. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I don't know what okay, some things were popping up there. It's fine now. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We've obviously had a blast. We've been able to answer a few questions, which is always great. So yeah, it's next month. We're gonna need some more speakers. We've got a couple of folks that have started putting up some ideas. So if you've got an idea, you want to elaborate, you've seen some cool libraries here and you want to go play with them over the coming months, and then you go, hey, I could probably do a lightning talk for everyone, you can absolutely do that. So do please check in and yeah, see if you want to do your own talk. If first-time speakers are always a favorite of mine. I heart you, and I'm more than happy to support you getting that talk out there as well. So please drop a line and let me know anything you need to get that happening. But yeah, otherwise, thank you very much to our speakers again. I'll keep the live stream up. Everyone's just clapping and saying thank you. That's fantastic. No last minute questions. That's good. Feel free to drop me a line there, and I'll leave the door prize poll question up for a while until it expires, essentially. So that's, don't feel like you've got to do that tonight, but certainly if you've got it, you remembered all the details, you could go and fill that in straight away, get in the draw. But yeah, thank you again, and we'll see you next month. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, everyone. So tell your friends, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.